stuff. I took 3 pieces of outfit, shirts, and that was all I had. I didn't have things like you guys have these days. And I had 2 pair of shoes, one black one, one brown one, and left that Thursday because my flight was on Friday with, at that time, it was Trans World Airlines, TWA. My mom said to me, look, I'm praying for you, and this is the last prayer before you head back. But as you go, don't look back. Don't look at me again. Just go. It was very emotional at that time. Because my mom and I were very close. So she said to me, look, don't look back. And of course, I couldn't look back. So I left with my brother. But unfortunately, the bus, back then there was STC bus which ran from Kumasi to Accra. So I could see my mom in the window. I said to myself, oh gosh, I'm going to miss this jollof. Oh, cha. In America, where am I going to get this jollof? Jollof chicken. And so I got to Accra, being very naive. I then said to my friend, Isaac Osei, who happens to be a member of parliament, and Robert, they were very good friends of mine. And I said, look, I'm leaving Friday to go to America. And so Robert said to me, look, how prepared are you? What money do you have? I thought, in my naive mind, and being a bush boy, I thought the cities can be spent in America. My dad had given me 300 cedis. So Robert says, where dear Kobna we krasini ampa. Then I said, oh, Robert, cha. He says, okay, give the 300 Ghana cedis to your brother, and he gave me $50. So I gave the money back. So that evening, we left the shores of Accra at that time. And when the plane took off, that was my first time on a plane. But there was no fear, because I figured my mom and dad had blessed me that even if anything happens, my good Lord is with me. So there was no fear. I think I was 18, 19 at that time. Unfortunately for us, the plane developed an engine problem. That was my first encounter. So the plane was forced to land at the Canary Islands. Came down, the plane landed, and they put us up in a hotel. And if you're familiar with the Canary Islands, it's mostly Spanish people and stuff. So the females there, they looked at me and they said, but this is a small young guy. He said, me too, I hadn't traveled anywhere before outside of Cape Coast, Kumasi, and sometimes Accra. It was very frightening, but I was not afraid. There was no fear. There was no fear at all. As it states in 2 Timothy 1, 7 and 8, I had no fear. Because when God is with you, who can be against you? Since my mom had prayed for me, that was it. My mom and dad, the blessings were there, and I had no fear. There was confidence. So eventually, the plane was fixed, and we got to America. We landed at JFK. But of course, since I was very naive, I didn't know the place was cold. I thought it was like Ghana here. Oh, Cha, uyu krasini awasema yo. I thought it was like Ghana. I saw this, the sun had come out, everything had come out, not knowing standing outside is cold. It was more like Indian summer. So unfortunately, I had sent a telex to my brother that the plane will land at this time. But because of the incident, he himself couldn't wait at the airport. He waited a whole day. I wasn't there. And I couldn't send another telex because I was up in the air. Get to JFK. I mean, what are you going to do? I haven't seen a place like that in my life, outside of Kumasi and Accra. The first thing that you guys will laugh at is I went out to open the door, not knowing that the door was automatic. So me and my bag fell down. I said, oh, not knowing that everything is automated. Cha, I was laying on my box. I said, my traveling box. Then I went outside to operate the telephone machine. But we don't have those kind of telephones here in Ghana. How do I now call my brother? I stand there, I watch the white people operating it. I say, So I get close and I realize, oh, I too can do this. I go there, operate it, it's not working. I say, God. So time is running. Now it's getting close to late in the evening. I only have $50 on me. How do I operate? I can't sleep in the airport because where would the next telex be? So I go to information desk, and the information desk says, look, the only place you can stay, since you don't have any money, is either the YMCA or there's a hotel called Empire Hotel, downtown Manhattan. So with $50, that gives me about 2 days. I said, fine. Let me join the shuttle from JFK to the Empire Hotel. I get to the Empire Hotel, and here I am, checked in. They gave me a little room. Back then, things in 73 or so, things were cheaper. So it was $20 for a room. So confidently, I got out in the lobby. So there were ladies of the night there and everything. So here I am, a young rascally boy. I decided well-trained. I said, look, I don't have any money. So I met a young black lady. She was older, a little bit in her mid-40s. So she says, what are you doing here? Young African kid. I says, well, I'm coming to university, but this is my ordeal. She says, look, this is a hotel. I'm working the night. I'm working through the night. I'd like to help you, but I can't leave until the next day. So I said to her that, look, I just need help to find my brother, so this is the address. She says, oh, it's in Brooklyn. We got to take this train, that train, that train. So to cut a long story short, apparently she was running Ladies of the Night in the hotel. Her name at that time is Mama Lula, and I'll never forget her. So Mama Lula came in the morning as I woke up. And by the way, there was an ordeal the night before. As I slept, because of the temperature difference, my nose was running blood everywhere. So I didn't know, I wasn't sick or anything, but all of a sudden my nose was running blood. It's because of the altitude and the temperature changes. So I had to wash the bed sheet, the pillowcase and all of that stuff. So that's the side story. So Mama Lula comes the next day and says, look, son, I don't have money. The tokens at that time, the train token was 15 cents. Now the token in New York is almost $4. Oh, shucks. My story is many. You guys have to call me back, S&M, and so I got too many stories. Let me quickly try and wrap this thing up. So the next day we go looking for my brother. We knock, 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 knock. He wasn't there. He had gone to work. I said, God, what am I going to do? God, what am I going to do? Mama Lula says, I got to go. I says, look, please, wait a little bit. So God being good, I look down the street. There comes my older brother. I say, Jesus, thank you. Because I have no money to continue. But the good thing about this is, when you think God is not working, God is always working. Always. And God will find a way to make this thing work. So that was my start going to America. From there, many things happened. So when I met my brother, I thanked Mama Lula. Up to today, Mama Lula is 86 years old. We still talk. I visit her all the time. Always do not let your success go without thanking those behind you and those who've helped you. Always be thankful. Be thankful to God and thankful to those who've helped you. Now, my own career, I was very successful and very blessed in America. I winded up going to engineering school. The scholarship apparently I took from Ghana to the U.S. was a sociology scholarship, which unbeknownst to me, there was no career guidance to know that this scholarship, and I was a math student, math, physics, and sociology, you have to do a PhD. So my brother says to me, look, it's never too late. You're young. Why don't you go to a technical school? I says, oh, let me go work a little bit. The dollars are important in Ghana. We need money. My brother insists, look, go. So I went to a technical school waiting for the next year enrollment. So the technical school was 18 months. Fortunately, I went to the technical school and I topped the class in air conditioning, refrigeration, and mechanics, and then also welding. As I sit here, I have a diploma in welding. I'm a welder, a pipe fitter welder. And I say all this to show that there's no skill in the world that you acquire that you can't use. Every skill can be used somewhere. So with that, I was admitted to engineering school, finished mechanical engineering, and I specialized in energy. After 4 years, I then moved on to work. But whilst I was in university, so something mysterious also happened. Since I had to pay my school fees myself, there was no money anywhere. So one fine afternoon, I was so tired at the cafeteria, so some guys were playing soccer in front of, so I decided to go join them. I was playing with them, and typical Ghanaian boy, I was fairly good at what I do. So, not knowing that the coach and the scout were standing somewhere watching the 5-on-5. So they approached me and says, look, you're damn good. Are you part of the school? I said, yeah, I'm here, but because I have no money, I don't come to class too much. Because I work in the night and I have to come during the day. They said, look, would you want to join the school team? I said, fine. But the others had scholarships. I didn't have a scholarship. So I says, well, I talked to my brother. He says, well, go join them. I will spot you $20 a week because my room rent was $15. So I had to cut everything short. Eventually, I joined the team. There were 36 members there, and they only had to keep 18. With that, God works in mysterious ways. They cut the first group, the second group. There were only 2 left to join the 18. I said to myself, look, I don't think I can make this. I was confident, but God had to intervene. Unfortunately, 2 of the boys who were actually given scholarships from Amsterdam, the Dutch, had meningitis, so they had to drop them. So I was the last guy to join the team. I says, God works in mysterious ways. I was about to give up. But I couldn't give up. I was confident enough that something will happen. Eventually, joined the team. The coach was German. It didn't help me, but as time went on, I became captain of the team. And eventually became All-America for New York State 3 years in a row, graduated with honors, and then, but a little bit of dig before I get off, because I don't have that much time. You got to invite me again for the rest of the story, because I've got phase 2 and phase 3 to tell you. So eventually, I graduated with my engineering degree. Unfortunately, because I owed the school, I never was able to go pick up the certificate until 4 years later. That tells you the situation, what God can do. I winded up working for IBM at that time, Carrier Corporation, IBM. But in all of this, God has been good, and there's a blessing. I always say you have to have the inner self-esteem, and the fear of God is the key. Confidence, confidence, confidence. Always be prepared, because you don't know where the break will come from. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uncle Franklin. So now we'll just get a brief life history, just 25 minutes from Auntie Araba. Yes, please, so that we have time for questions as well. Thank you.
I think first of all, I'd like to thank the team for inviting me. I was surprised when I had the call from Reverend Ankama Samoa, and I told my girls, they said, hey, wow, well, my name is Araba Ikuba Abakwegrin. That is my full name. And I'm the last born of my parents. I come, or should I say, I come from a polygamous family. My mother's side, we were 3, and then my father had other children. But what my father did was, all of us, wherever you were born, he would bring you to the house. We had a house. So there were 6 of us. One was not with us because of some issues. There were 6 of us, and we all lived with our stepmother. My stepmother didn't have any child, so we're all my stepmother's children. My father was a distinguished banker, the old times Barclays Bank manager, one of the first black Barclays Bank managers. And my mother was a nurse. So my mother being a nurse, she was posted from one district to the other and all that. So my father bringing all of us together was good for her. As I said, I was the last born. My father was a Methodist, and my mom, my stepmother, they were Anglicans. So we used to attend church, Anglican, every Sunday. My father would make the driver drop us off with our stepmother, and he would go and have his service at the Methodist. Unfortunately, death laid its icy hands on my father when I was 7, going on to 8. So things became a bit tough for us. But 7, it meant I was in class 2, going on to class 3. So my mother, in those times, I think it was succession, customary successor who would take over. And then my uncles, my father, they were 10 guys and then 2 ladies. My uncles sort of feared my father, so they brought somebody who was, excuse me to say, I would label him, I'm sorry, but he wasn't that of a responsible person. So eventually, my mother had to take on the responsibility of looking after the 3 of us, myself, my sister, and my brother. My sister, before my father passed, had been sent to a boarding school in Swedru. So when my father passed, since I was also young, I think I joined her before my father passed. So when my sister completed her common entrance, she came to school in Takrady, and I had to leave the boarding school because I was still young. I couldn't go there alone. So I had to leave and come to Takrady. So I came to Takrady. They got a school for me. And I used to love to play. I mean, when my father was there, we had studies teacher. After school, the teacher would come, teach us and all that. But when my father died, we didn't get all those things again. So, and I would go and play. My stepmother doesn't have time for you. You go. When I'm going, as girls have play tricks, she will be standing on the corridor looking out into the streets. And I'll be against the house, the wall. I'll go to the next house and go and play. I used to love to play. So books were not something that I'll say I loved, you know. By the grace of God, I found myself in another school. And then I think my teacher realized that I was a good student. But me and my play, I will play. I will not study, you know. So when it was time for us to choose our schools, secondary schools, I didn't know the school to choose because they didn't give the forms to us to take home. We had to fill the forms in the school. And even if we had to take the forms home, my mother was not with us anyway. And where she was, I couldn't have called her on phone. So I went to stand in front of my teacher and he said, I was looking at my friends. They were all choosing a particular school in Takrady, all of them. So I also went to stand there and said, okay, I want to go to this school. And he said, no. Why don't you choose this school? Actually, I said, why don't you choose Wesley Girls? And I was standing there. I didn't know. I was just standing. Meanwhile, my mother attended Wesley Girls. So I'm sure if the forms had gotten to her, she would have said, choose Wesley Girls. But of course, she was a nurse, so I didn't really know much about the school she attended. More so because I lived with my stepmother, I didn't really know much about her. So then I had a friend who sat right in front of the teacher. And before then, she had discussed that, we should choose Holy Child. I didn't know Holy Child. I said, Then sitting there, she heard a conversation between myself and the teacher. So she was pleading, looking at me, pleading that, choose Holy Child, choose Holy Child. So I just told the teacher that, okay, Holy Child. So I chose Holy Child. And then I got it. Unfortunately, she did not get it. I got in. So Holy Child was a good school, of course. I went there still with my non-studious attitude, you know. But for some reason, God was good to me. I wasn't that serious, but I found myself sailing through. O-level, by the grace of God, I did well. I got into sixth form, same school. And growing up, you think that, I'd want to take after my mother. I'd want to take after my father. But here I said, I didn't like the sight of blood. So nursing was out of my way. I didn't like the sight of blood. So then what next? The sight of blood, nursing, medicine, no, out. No, I didn't. In Form 3, I noticed that science was not my thing. I didn't like physics. I didn't like chemistry, but I loved business. I loved business management. So, and I loved, we were doing typing then, Form 2, Form 3. So I said, okay, I'll do typing, I'll do business. So I chose business, typing, and I chose shorthand too. It was very challenging. Shorthand was challenging. I did it Form 4, I dropped it. Form 4, I said, okay, I chose 9 subjects, did it by the grace of God, passed. 6th form, did business again. And then I said, okay, what next? Administration, what next? But even then, when I completed A-level, at a point in time, I lived in Takrady with my parents. At a point in time, I realized that they were opening branches in Takrady. So I said, and A-level, they were employing A-level graduates. I said, why don't I apply and then go, just put university aside and then go and work. So there was this guy who lived in one of our apartments in my house. So I had a discussion with him. And he said, no, sister, don't do this. You know what? When you complete university and come back, the people who went to work, you'd come and then you will be ahead of us when you work 2-3 years. So rather go to university. So I decided, because of that, I had to do national service 2 years before entering university. And then university too, I said no. Because I didn't do accounting, I would have loved to have done BCom. I didn't do accounting, so they will not allow me to do BCom. I said, okay, then I'll do BA secretaryship, because that one, I had done some typing in my O-level exam. I'd done typing, I'd done business, commerce, economics, and all that. So I opted for BA secretaryship. And the first application, they gave me social sciences. I said, no, I don't want social science. I want BA secretaryship. So it forced me to go and do a second-year national service. And I came back, applied for BSEC again. And they didn't want to give me BSEC again. But what I learned was that even if they don't give you your choice and they give you a different program, you go in and you'll be able to change. So that is what I did. So this time when they gave me social sciences again, I don't know, if it were today, I would say that it was God working his purpose out, and I would have taken it. But then I didn't know. So I went in with social sciences. I wasn't going for lectures. I was following my education friend, who I would go and sit in her classes with her. Then I pursued trying to change it, and eventually the lady said, but if you had done French, I could have given you this secretaryship program. And I said, oh, but I did French. I did A-level French. She said, why didn't you say it all this while? So eventually I got my BA secretaryship. So I went in and I did a 4-year BA secretaryship with a diploma in education. I mean, all this time, it was our mother who was taking care of us from a meager salary of being a nurse, the three of us. And by the grace of God, I completed my program. Then I came to Accra. I got married, and I came to Accra, did my national service at University of Ghana, got a job, came to Accra, and had my first child. Then that was when the challenges came. When I was doing my national service, I got a job. So because I had served 2 years previously, I didn't have to finish this one. I left, and then when I got married, I got pregnant. And these private firms, that's why I told myself that I would never work for a one-man business because of the experience. Because you get pregnant and they want to kick you out. They kicked me out. And those were the days, I mean, you have nothing to. So I had to stay at home, for over a year looking after my daughter. So whilst I was looking after my daughter, I was at the same time looking for a job. So after a year, 6 months or so, I got a job. And this job was like that. It was very demanding. You go to work in the morning. Your boss is not ready to work. He is ready to work at 5 p.m. when you have to go for your daughter from school. So that is the challenge for us ladies. Your boss is ready to work at 5. So 2 weeks, I had to leave that job. I left the job, and by the grace of God, I got a better job. I got a UNDP project. So that's where I was a project assistant. I worked on that project for 4 years, and that one helped a lot. It helped in the sense, I think that opened the way for me. Whilst I was doing probably a background of that program, that project was managed by Kenyans, a Kenyan firm. So the project manager I started the project with was recalled somewhere along the line, and a new one was brought on board. And because the new one came on board, he thought that, because he wasn't part of the start of the program, I would have some institutional memory. So even when I wanted to go and do my MBA, because those times getting into the business school to do master's MBA was not easy. We had to go through interviews and all that. So when I made the attempt and I got the admission, I told myself I wasn't going to let that opportunity slip. So I went to my boss and I told him that this was it. And by the grace of God, he wasn't willing to let me go. So he made me work half-time, 20 hours a week, and I'll use the other 20 hours for school. And this meant that my salary went down also by 50%. And these are some of the sacrifices that we should be willing to make when we are working. If you want to work and school at the same time, you have to sacrifice. You cannot have it all, you know. So I did that one, and I was able to come out with an MBA in Human Resources. Then after that, I got into Prudential Bank. I got into Prudential Bank working with my former boss, may her soul rest in peace now. I deputized for her. So at Prudential Bank, probably because my boss was a lawyer, she didn't have HR background. She was a lawyer and she was into HR. And before then, when I was on the project, I was thinking of, why don't I read law? But you know, I was also looking at law. Law is a full-time thing. You cannot read law and work full-time. And this was the case where I had finished working on the project. So this is a full-time job. I couldn't do it. But by the grace of God, I saw an ad in the paper, LLB, University of London. So that one, you will have to do your own studies, and then you write exam when the time was up for you to. This is an exam that I tell you, I have never, this was when I saw my full potential, you know, because I had to study. I had to study. I did 1 year at Prudential Bank, the first year. I did 4 subjects. So what I used to do was, I'll go to work. After work, then I'll go for classes, lectures. Then on Saturdays, what I'll do, Saturdays when I wake up, I'll go to the market, do my grocery shopping. Then I needed somebody to cook for me. So I found this lady, I'll do my grocery shopping, I'll come and put everything down, then she'll cook, then off I go. The whole Saturday I'll spend at the library. So my Monday to Friday was work, school, Saturday studies, Sunday church and rest, family time. This was how I planned my life. I did it in such a way that there was no Sunday that I'll say I'm going to study. No, not even during exam period. And I'm the type, I don't know how to learn at night. Because when I learn at night and I wake up in the morning, my head and my eyes. So learning at night is a no-no for me. So what it meant was that my day, I make the best out of it. So I had to discipline myself. By the grace of God, first year I passed all 4 subjects. And the course was such that if you failed 2 subjects, you had to rewrite all 4. And the law too was such that if you were the type who would do last-minute learning, the examiners were able to tell that this one, it was a last-minute job. So you had to consistently read. Whenever there were no lectures, you go, you brief your cases and all that. So by the grace of God, I completed year 1 successfully. Then I was left with 5 more subjects to finish. And the 5 more subjects, and when I completed, I passed. I went to tell my boss, oh, by the grace of God, I've passed. Not knowing that that wasn't good for me. I was there when they brought me a letter that if you haven't worked for 5 years, then you cannot pursue any course. I said, but I'm not using your time to do my studies. I do my studies over the weekend, and then I go for lectures after work. So, well, and God being so good, this was, I think, in December. I just went in there to tell her that, you know what, I think, considering how far I've come, I think I'll have to leave. So I resigned. And God being so good, in February, I got another job. So I got the job, and then I went in there, and I used the 2 years to finish the rest of my subjects. So by the grace of God, I finished the LLB. Then there was the need to go to Makolagana Law School. So that one too was a bit of a challenge, but by the grace of God, I got the opportunity. So when I got the opportunity, the orientation, I even went to tell my boss to give me just a day to go for the orientation. And she said no, she would not. And I said, wow. And I said, but having come all this far, will I let this no stop me? And I said, no, I don't need to let this go. So I called her and I told her that I'm sorry, but I think I will have to go for the orientation, and then when I came back, I would give her my resignation. She said, okay. So I went. I went for the orientation, got into Makola. So when I came back, she came asking for the resignation, and I gave it to her. To Makola too, of course, I couldn't, I had to take care of myself. I had to pay my school fees. I had to buy books, petrol up and down and all that. I needed to do all those things. So I looked around and I said, wow. I had my master's. I had a diploma in education. So then I had to go and look for lecturing with Zenith College. So I applied to them and I got a lecturing job position. So I lectured in management and human resource related subjects until I was able to complete the law school program. The long and short of this all is that you need determination, you need discipline, you need commitment, you need focus to get to wherever you want to get to. Nothing will come into your plate that easily. Sometimes God gives this to us, but he teaches us and he guides us, So I completed Makola. I was called to about 2011. Time just flies like that. And then after that, I got a job at Stanbic Bank. I worked there for like 6 months or 7 months, and I got a better offer and I left. I remember going for an interview. They looked at my CV and said, you have worked for, is it 18, 20 years, and you have worked at 9 places already. Why? 9 places. There are times when you work, like when I used to work at Prudential Bank, my boss wasn't older than me. I don't think more than 4 years. So you ask yourself, would you want to mark time here until when? You ask yourself that question. I do not want her to go, for me to go into that position. So you plan your own life. Do not plan it on the position that is there. And what I realized was that the more you move, the higher you go. So you develop yourself, you move on, and as you move, definitely you are not going to apply for a lower position. Neither would you even take the same position. You would at least want to go a bit ahead of you. I had to do all this, staying married, looking after 2 girls. I think I had a little girl when I was in Prudential. That one also came with its own wahala, because you are hired, you are pregnant, and you have to go home. They are not paying you and all that. But that should not deter us. It's part of life. But what I'll say is that you need to plan your life. You need to plan your life. You need to have time for the children. That's why I said Sundays were the days that I used to give to the family when I was pursuing my program. By the grace of God, I've come this far. I pray and I leave things to God. I don't struggle pursuing things. When it comes, I leave it. If it doesn't come, I take it that it is not for me. And that is it. Thank you.
Time. Sorry, without wasting much time, we just dive into the questions. We'll begin. Let me start with you, Auntie Araba, please. What motivated you to pursue a career in human resource management, and how did you get started in those fields? Get started in the field of human resource.
Okay, so my first degree was in BA Secretaryship, which was Management Administration. And I don't like marking time, staying at one place. So whilst my first job was administrative assistant. That was the first position that I took on after school. Now, what is the next step for me? That is a question I always ask myself. What is the next step for me? Where do I want to go? I am not that outgoing person, so marketing was a no-no for me. So I had to look at the role that I played and look at what I could do. So it was definitely master's in business administration. Then I went for HR because even as a project assistant, as an admin assistant, I was supporting the financial controller in managing the staff in that institution. So it was quite easy for me in deciding the path that I wanted to take, you know. And then the project too, of course, because I was the first project assistant, the first person hired, I was sort of managing everybody on that project. When people were coming from Kenya, people were going to Kenya, were traveling, I was coordinating all that. So it was better for me pursuing that line. That's how come I found myself there.
Do you have any question?
Yeah, George, do I have to answer the same question or something different? So, how I got into law, or?
Yes, how did you get into law?
Well, mine is, since my base background degree is mechanical engineering, it's all technical. I winded up with an energy company out in New Jersey, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, I worked in a power plant. It was a fossil fuel power plant, which it was converting to it was fossil fuel plant, which is actually converting into a nuclear power plant. What usually happens when you're building power plants is you always have to submit environmental impact statements to underline some of the challenges, social challenges in the area, in terms of the positives and the negatives. And all that, you also have to file with the federal government. And it's done by mostly lawyers. But my boss at that time, Rocco Romano, said to me that, look, we have to explain everything on a technical side to the legal department. Is there anybody here who would like to go to law school and the company will pay for it? I wasn't married. I was having a great time as a single guy with my afro everywhere, enjoying myself, typical disco guy, chilling every weekend. And I said, I will go ahead and take the law school exams. I studied a little bit, but not a whole lot. Winded up passing the exam. So I said, boy, engineers are smarter than lawyers. Because engineering school was very draining and it was very challenging, especially coming from Adisado, because I was all science, and those boys were really good. I mean, I won't lie to you. I mean, even if you had about 75, you're failing. That's how challenging it was in that science class. So I passed the entrance exam, which was the LSAT, and then entered Rutgers University in New Jersey. First year, I was even getting a B plus and stuff, even with half studying and carrying on. The only thing with law is you have to spend a whole lot of time reading and then case studies and stuff. So I winded up doing what you call regulatory law. That's where I specialized. Regulatory law dealt with most of the federal regulations but you did do the basic law, legal writing, and all of that. I did all of that mess. But to me, it complemented what I did as an engineering project manager. Eventually, the law degree helped me to become a program manager. And the program manager, I see everything from where I sit. You know, first of all, you can interpret the contract, and you can also negotiate the contract. What is in the contract? What are the terms and conditions in the contract? So it made me fairly unique. Although I was the only black person when I left there to go to IBM to be in that role. So there were some racial undertones and different things. But for me, as a saddle guy, nothing scares me. I mean, I've been in big fights. It just didn't do anything. I mean, I just was, my father, my mother, they had already programmed me to say, look, you can do anything. You can challenge anybody in anything. And then Saddle enhanced, and I talk about Saddle so much because the competition was fierce. I loved my classmates, and it was just a school that made me who I am. It was very God-fearing. I was a server there. You know, church was mandatory. I mean, I decided to build my character. I mean, I am at Saddle the whole way. You know, either the first or with the first. I won't lie to you. I like to win every game. I'm very aggressive and assertive. Confidence, self-esteem is the key. I take that into anything, my marriage, my friendship, my everything I do. So going to become a lawyer helped me, where I presented the legal papers for the company. I did everything there until I now came into program management at IBM, which actually doubled my salary. So I was making a pretty decent money to move on. So again, it helped me a lot. Even coming to Ghana, I came in as Director of Legal for Global Media Alliance before I moved into other things. But having a law degree was very unique as an engineer because of diversification. Your portfolio then has been diversified. So you can actually see many things. So at Newmont Gold, for instance, although being a director, I can see things from different angles. So I always tell young guys, use every skill you have, diversify yourself. Don't box yourself into a hole. Diversification is the key. Make sure you use every possible talent God has given you and diversify and open it up. Don't work in a hole. Open it up and you'll be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you very much. I'd also like to ask that, given both of your extensive, career backgrounds, what would you say is a significant project that you have embarked on or worked on, and what made it stand out to you as a professional in that field?
If I can understand, it says what made me stand out.
What made that project stand out to you?
Okay. I've had several projects, and I know I'll continue to have some more. Usually, what is very dangerous from a program manager is risk management. How do you manage risk? I've had in my career 3 major things that have been very critical, and they are on different jobs. My last job that I had before I came to Ghana was the airport manager for Reagan National Airport and Dallas Airport. That is when the 9/11 incident occurred. As the program manager and senior manager at that time, unfortunately, like the Ashantis would say, Tiboni I am friend to bata. Ebesia, aden na me time nesi. Boni ben my. Once it hit, the first 120 people, I had to coordinate and get them into the morgue because the offices had mortuary underneath. Some with no limbs, some with, so it was just one of the most painful times of my life. I mean, dead bodies everywhere who had to be bagged and put into the temporary morgue before they can be taken to hospital. That was one of the worst. I mean, I don't want to relive it, but the inner strength and the praying, meditation, sometimes I don't want to talk about it because it's just too painful. We are nothing. We are nothing. Only God could save us. So that was one of the worst projects I've had. Another one that I had that was also pretty interesting and alarming happened on a Sunday about maybe 30 years ago. I was a project manager at IBM. I had to lift a big centrifugal machine onto a building. So I had prepared for an airlift, which I've cleared the whole area. I mean, I had 20 security officers who cleared everything. So as the helicopter lifted the unit, I was watching from the helipad. The unit went up, and you could see the helicopter starting to drift. So the helicopter had to release that unit, which is almost 65 tons, onto the ground. There was wind. All of a sudden, there are hills around there, which we had taken into account, and we had the aviation folks look at it. I myself looked at it as project manager. I got on my knees. I prayed. I said, God, let this project move smooth. I don't know what happened. It went up. The pilot had to drop the unit. Scattered everywhere. I said to myself, and typical Ashanti man, Tiboni I infant bata, Ewurade Nyankopon. Well, how would this happen? But then I got on my knees. I said, God is good all the time. All this will work out. I mean, after I lost, it's very expensive. You're talking about close to $1 million. You got the helicopter, you got the unit. I said to myself, why me? Why me? But why me? Because God knows you can face that challenge. You have no fear, you got confidence, and you have the self-esteem to know God will handle this situation also. Eventually what happened is we had picked up an insurance on the unit. We didn't lose any casualties. We lost 3 or 4 vehicles. We paid for them. But the good thing is nobody died. And those were some of the 2 prominent things that had happened in my life. Thanks, George.
Thank you, Uncle Franklin. Auntie Araba, could you also share something similar in regards to a significant project that you undertook in your career?
A significant project that,
yes.
Okay.
And how it stood out to you, please.
I mentioned that I worked on a UNDP program. It was a UNDP Microstart program, and this had to do with, this was way in the late 90s, before microfinance caught up in Ghana, So UN wanted to identify some institutions and then give them capacity building so that they could go into this microfinance business. And it was an international program. So the program managers who were successful to manage this, they were Kenyans. It was a Kenyan firm. So, and then the program was being undertaken in Ghana. So they had to come here to set up an office. And I was the first person they hired. So I had to work with them to set up the office, to get local technical service providers, that's the local technical service providers, go through all the interviews, travel over, I think there was an advert, then institutions applied. We did our assessment, analysis, all that, and then we got the institutions on board. Long story short, at the end of the day, the program was successful, and that even a second phase was introduced. So I worked with the second phase for a year or two, then I moved on. And it was during that the project's lifetime that I was also able to go back to school. That's the half. I did the 50-50 thing. So for me, I think it was good. And it was after that program that microfinance institutions sprang up all over in Ghana.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so at this juncture, I would like to also acknowledge our online audience. In case they have any questions, please put it on the platform and the tech team will direct it to us. Please, I want to ask, this is in relation to, those of us who have just begun our, let me say, our work life. What skills, specific skills or qualities do you think are most important in the field of law or in the field of engineering? Because even now, the law, how it's going, entrance exam issues, and even after pupillage, there is really not much. You just have to go into pupillage and all of that. So what skills do you think that we need to equip ourselves with to be able to advance further in the field? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. In terms of skills, things have changed quite a bit. When we were in engineering school, we were using the slide rule back then. Now, what we have, everything is computerized. So IT is the key. Without IT, it's going to be very tough. I think with the new STEM programs in the secondary schools, and even as early as middle schools, it's very good. Because although the technical side is there, but you need to have some very strong IT skills to get there. One of the things also that I advocate is at the basic level, I overheard Auntie Araba talk about shorthand and all of those things. Now I have to type most of my agreements or contractual agreements because you have to know Word, you have to know Excel, you have to know all these IT software to be successful. And even no matter what age, you always need to open your skills to a level at which you become marketable. One thing I can also say is there's nothing in this world that you study or do that will not be beneficial. Everything you do in life is beneficial. At the time when you're doing it, you might think, oh, what does law have to do with engineering? It has a lot to do with it. So diversification is the key now. You need to be able to merge your skills with other skills set that will make you successful, because sometimes you lose a team member. And as an executive, you need to be able to look at the financial picture just with a glance before you get to any executive meeting. What is the bottom line? Although you're an engineer or you're a lawyer, at the end of the day, what is the bottom line? What are we working to? Where's funding? What's the budget? I want you to tell me, is this thing budgeted? Give me a rundown. What's the expense versus revenue? What are we doing? We need money to get this thing done. Where are we getting the money sources? And by the way, I teach a course called Engineering and the Law. One of the things I look at is the color of money. Let me tell you, money is not only green, money comes in different flavors and different colors. And why I say that is, if you look at projects, as Auntie Araba is talking about, there are some monies that are dedicated for research. There are some monies that are dedicated for implementation of a specific project. You cannot mismatch or reallocate money without telling anybody. It's only in Ghana that they can do that. And I don't know how these people do it, but that is possibly a crime. Moving money from one bucket to another bucket when it's not really assigned. As a matter of fact, you need a legal document to be able to do that. But again, as you're saying, all these skills interface. There's no skill that you will not need. So diversification, making sure your foundation is solid. Everything you study has value somewhere. You're going to use it. You might not be an expert, but it will be very helpful going forward. So the skill set now, since everything revolves around IT, you need to be very solid in the IT area. If nothing else, you need to be functional in the IT area. Thank you.
So to add to what Uncle Franklin has said, your question was, as new lawyers, new engineers, what skills? Okay, so IT, of course, is very paramount, as Uncle Franklin has emphasized. I will add that as an individual, you yourself should have or cultivate certain skills to help you in the profession that you have chosen. First, what I have noticed is that nowadays the youth, they get jobs and tomorrow they want to be up there. It doesn't work that way. It takes time. You have to prove yourself. You should be willing to learn. You should be willing to learn. And as you learn, you pick up a lot of skills on the way. How you deal with human beings at the workplace is a different ball game altogether. So you need to pick that. You need to learn what you learn from school is good, but it becomes different when you come into the field. So in practice, and as you know, what you learned at the law school is not the same thing when you go to court. You do not see, you learn more, let me put it that way. You learn more when you go to court. Of course, even those of us who don't do litigation, when we go, you see that there are certain things that you yourself, you have found wanting, although you have been to the law school, So you have to tell yourself that you are giving yourself this number of years to learn. And as you learn, you progress. And I said earlier on to that, when you learn, you should also be looking at other things that you can add to what you are learning now to help you progress faster. Yes.
I think I'll add one more thing before we move on to the next question. One of the things I have realized that is very key is communication. And that's one thing that's very lacking with the young people of today. Their communication skills are very poor. Sometimes you are talking to the individual and he or she is looking down. He's not looking at you at eyeball level. That's confidence, self-esteem. I'm talking to you, look at me dead in the eye, and say yes or no. Either it's negative or positive, I want you to tell me. Also, their communication skills, because of WhatsApp and whatever, they don't communicate well. They don't write well. Grammar is very lacking. But don't forget who you're sending the WhatsApp message to. When you people were sending me WhatsApp messages and stuff, you know what I was looking at? I was looking at your grammar and looking at who are these people? Quickly, I realized that these people are Wesley Girls people, or probably Holy Child, because their grammar was there. And the grammar was good grammar. So again, those are first impressions. Also, you could see the choice of words, especially with Asinam. You could see she was pulling words to make sure that I could tell exactly what she wanted. Now, George sent me his, which was like a thesis. And I said, man, this kid wants to put me to learn. But the key is communication. How do you communicate? What choice of words? What do you do? So I advise young people of today, when you write a memo or a letter or whatever that is going someplace, sleep over it before, after the draft, sleep over it and make sure the choice of words, the grammar, and where it's going meets the eye and meets the purpose. Thank you.
I think
that's
is a question online.
I just wanted to comment on that a bit.
Oh, okay.
That's a bit of Prempeh College grammar for you. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Yes, so someone is asking, what is the best advice you can give to a mid-30 woman with 2 young children who is now pursuing law? And she follows up that one with, how can she balance the pursuit of law while being committed to the work of God? So, yes, so she's a mother of 2 kids and she's pursuing law. She wants to know the best advice you can give to her. Yes, and how she can also balance that with God's work.
It would have been good to know what stage she has reached, you know.
I think she's now pursuing. She has
LLB.
yes.
LLB, okay. So, and she's working?
Yes.
Okay.
2 very young kids.
2 very young kids. What I'll say to her is that she needs help. You know, she cannot do it all by herself. You know, for me, at the time, I think my mother was around. And by the grace of God, my sister too used to live just around the children's school. So whenever the children closed, their dad would drop them there, and I'll be studying. So they will stay there, eat, do everything. When I close, because I said that when I was doing the LLB, after work at 5 p.m., I'll have to go for lectures. And I close around 8 p.m. So 8 p.m., I'll then be going to pick up the kids from cantonments before we come home. So she needs help. And when it comes to cooking, I wasn't doing it myself. Over the weekends, I had somebody who would come in, somebody I could trust, not anybody at all. I could trust to come in to do the cooking for me, then I'll store the stews and the soups in the freezer. So that during the week, when your mom is around, she takes, mommy, today rice or yam or whatever. In any case, because we come home late, the children would have eaten from my sister's end. We get home, it's just bedtime. Then the next morning, we are up and going again. As for God, you cannot leave him out of the equation because he's the one who is seeing you through anyway. So for me, that is paramount. That is why I said that Sundays were my resting days. I would come to church, I'll do all that I need to do. I go home, I don't even study on Sundays. I do not, the only time probably you see me studying on Sundays is when I have an exam paper on Monday. Even then, I will not miss church. I will come to church. After church, I'll go home, look after the family. Around 2, 3, I leave the house. 8 o'clock, I'm back, getting ready for work the next day and for the children's school the next day. So it's about planning and looking for help. I mean, she cannot do it by herself.
Right. Uncle Franklin, you don't have any, or is this is?
Myself, I tell you, now that I've joined the 70-year club, 70 to 80 will be a very challenging time for me. I need more prayers from all of you to be able to withstand that. One thing I can tell you up to now is I don't take myself too serious. Typical decidal spirit, I play hard, work hard, and pray hard. The age, I don't look at it as any, it's come too fast. But again, my advice to younger people, don't take yourself too serious. Preparing and planning, and also rely on God. Allow God to do the job. You cannot do the job yourself. I will refer you to 2 Timothy 1-7, which talks a lot about confidence. If you can, most young people read it, and it will be very helpful. One of the things also I'll leave you with is my quiet prayer time. I have prayers personally, and I'm sharing some of my secrets with you. Monday morning, 4-5 a.m. before I go jogging or doing anything. Monday, I start off with Psalm 27. And then I close with Psalm 121. Then on Friday, I start my day with Psalm 91. He that dwelleth in the secret place, 10,000 shall fall at side, 10,000 at thy right hand, while not come near your tent. The spiritual foundation is key. Yes, we've all sinned, but you need constantly to pray to God for forgiveness. Aside from the forgiveness, you also need the inner strength, which actually builds your self-esteem and also your confidence. Your confidence is key. When sometimes you see people coming, you can see this is a broken man, this is a broken woman. Why? Because their spiritual confidence is low. You need to get that up high, and every time it needs to be replenished. It's like fuel. You need to replenish it all the time. Stay positive and always be optimistic. God will handle it, God will do it, and it will get better. Amen.
Amen.
So to add something small to that, to the lady, I think, I don't know what the husband does, but I mean, her first point of call of help is the husband with regards to the children's education and all that, you know. And then with regards to housekeeping, then she will need, if her mother is alive and free, that's the better or the best option for her. Even if there's a third person in the house, there should be somebody closer to her overseeing that. We should help.
All right, thank you very much. I think we can all agree here that Uncle Franklin does not look 70. You look quite younger than that, but glory be to God.
Very young.
Very. And quickly, turning over the page a bit, we want to delve into the family life aspect of the interview. Given the times that we are in, and even, you know, before, one of the biggest things to consider when I'm going in for a partner, I mean, there are varied options and various things to look at. But in your opinions, what would you say is the priority? What do you say is the thing to look out for when choosing a life partner?
George, that's a good question. One of the first things I look at as a priority to anything is your attitude. When you send me your CV, I don't look at the schools and stuff. Those are secondary. but your attitude, your packaging, and how you feel about yourself. I don't do the normal interview, like people ask this. No. Your attitude is key. Your whole packaging, your confidence. What are you presenting? Why should I hire you? Even if I was a young man like you, George, and you were looking for a girl, what is she packaging? What is she presenting, George? If Asinam or you guys are looking for guys, what do you look for? Who is this guy? What is he? What does he bring into my life? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is he sure about himself? You know, who is this guy? Confidence, 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 and self-esteem. Attitude is a key. If you come in with a negative attitude, I can tell right away. The first 3 to 5 minutes of the interview, I know for sure that this person cannot work on this team. Even sometimes, I look at some of the church roles and stuff, and unfortunately, I don't get involved too much because of travel, because I like to take on activities, start and finish. But now that I have my good friend Seth on the management committee, I know he's going to assign me a few things. But back to your question, the key is attitude, your packaging, your dressing. First impressions, as my mom says, speak louder than words. You might not have a second chance to make another impression. The first impression is the key. I mean, you are young ones. When you're coming, I don't know you, but I have to look at you. And looking at you, what are you packaging? What are you presenting? That's the first thing. Now you get to me, and then we have to communicate. Then you're looking down. You're not looking at me. Are you hiding something? Why? Confidence, 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 self-esteem. But, George, to answer your question, attitude is the first thing I look at. I can teach you anything, but if you don't have the right attitude, I can't work with it. So my key my pet variable or element is attitude, attitude, attitude. Keep a positive attitude all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Auntie Araba.
I think Uncle Franklin has said it. Attitude is key. But how would you be able to tell that person's attitude? Because, you know, human beings, we can hide things for years, you know. You live with somebody 25 years before certain things pop up in the marriage, and you ask yourself, how come I never saw this all this while? Why? Was it that I was blind or what? Attitude is key. Fear of God is important, you know. But of course, today, Christians, we have a lot of them in church, all right. But is it the true fear of God that they have in them? You see, you need to pray. The fear of God one, you pray. And you also look at the person and look at how the person fits into his own family. How he treats his own siblings. Either younger or older siblings. How he treats them, does he respect? His circle of friends. How he speaks. I mean, with regards to attitude, my sister has a saying. She says that she always tells the son that, you see, how you look, he's handsome. So appearance will take you there, but your attitude will bring you back. You get it? So it's a mixture of everything. You need to, allow me to use the phrase, shine your eyes. You know, don't be overtaken with what your heart is telling you, but your head has to be on your neck, and you need to think straight. And then above all, prayer. Prayer, how do you get it? It's the inner peace that you get. The inner peace that you get when it comes to with that person. Prayer is key. Because as I said, 25 years, it's only the Holy Spirit or God who knows what is within that individual. So prayer is key. Thank you.
Right, so we are still on the family life. I would like to know what has been your biggest challenge in raising children, especially in their teen years, and how did you overcome this challenge?
Is it for me?
Yes.
Oh boy, you guys today want to know everything. I've had two sets of kids. My two girls are older. They are in, as a matter of fact, one of them is just about to turn 40. And the other one is about 2 years behind. And then also, I don't know that God loves me so much. I now have quadruplets at my age. So Auntie Araba can take 2 boys, and I will give the girls to Reverend. Reverend Ankama can take the girls, because she will do very good with them. One of the things now with young kids is communication. My older girls, for instance, I didn't know were that attached to me. I had them do literally everything. Their confidence is unbelievable. I actually trained them as independent ladies who could do anything. My girls, I'm very proud of them because when you sit back and you watch them now, you could see the confidence level. Also, I made sure educationally they were sound. They were God-fearing. That was the key. Prayers, 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 prayers all the time. Even the quadruplets, I have same thing. Prayers, 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 prayers. We pray together. We do everything together. But their self-esteem and confidence, it starts early. And you, the father, has a role. The mother also has a role. But for some strange reason, the father has a particular role which is unique, especially when it comes to females. Don't underestimate your girls. They could do everything the guy can do. Make sure you train them across the board. Their confidence level, and also communication. They could talk to me about everything. The boys they date, where they're going, and sometimes I give suggestions too. But I let them bring the play to me because if you preempt them, they won't tell you. But I will give you one incident for you, S&M, and your co-owner here to laugh small. My older daughter came to me and says, "Dad, this guy is quite interesting. I want to chill a little bit with this guy." I said, "Oh, yeah? How good is the guy?" She said, "Well, I'll go check him out and I'll let you know." So as a father, I said, fine. But again, it's not that I like everything that would take place, but I was open-minded. He comes back to me and says, "Dad, he wasn't tough like I want them to be. His hands were very soft." So I says, "Oh, Cass, but the hands being soft." He said, "Dad, the guy, I don't think he can work hard." I said, "Oh, by the way, he could be a doctor." He said, "Hell no, he's not a doctor." And then I said to Cassie, I said, "Oh, but what kind of..." But to cut a long story short, this is me talking to my daughter as friends. She says to me, "Daddy, by the way, he's the only son, so the mom does everything." And I said, "Oh, interesting." So I didn't have to make a decision for her. She made the decision herself. And also being a dad, I sat back for the play to come to me before I interjected. I didn't go telling her, "Take A, B, C." No. I am a helper. So I says, Guys, how do you feel? He said, Dad, he's really not tough. I says, how do you want these guys to be? He said, Daddy, I've checked him out. I don't think he meets the bill. This is father to daughter talking, you see. But again, communication, being able to talk with them. Now I visit them. I call for dates. Hey, you're going to a date with your dad. Where are we going? I let them pick. The set of quadruplets that I have, they are a little bit challenging and different. But again, when I got them, I almost died. Because I said to myself, at this age, what am I going to do with these kids? But they turned out to be a blessing. They have calmed me down. And raising them also, it's different and a different era and different time, because now the communication is much, much different than it used to be. But I still will work the same way God directed me with the older ones. I pray that God will direct me with these ones, and I'll open up with communication key. Thank you.
So I have 2 girls. You said teenagers. I have 2 girls. One is 25 and one turned 19 just last week. So I still have a teenager. The only difference is that she's not here with me. But I think I have created a relationship with her in such a way that whether she's here or not, I'm still her mother. Every blessed day she would call me. As soon as I sit down in my seat in the office, she's on the line. She calls me, I don't pick, I have a problem. I have to answer. Why I didn't pick a call? Why? Do I have another daughter somewhere? So it's the relationship you build with them. It's key. It's the relationship you build with them. And my daughters have always been around me. I mean, growing up. In actual fact, it was because of the big one that I started attending this church, Ray Church. I was attending Central ICGC. But I think because of the school that she attended, she preferred it when she came to the Sunday school here. She used to come to church with Miss Ego, and she preferred it. So I realized that she didn't like the church I was. So because of her, I moved here. So for girls, they have to be very close to you at the same time to their father. There's no communication that I do not have with my children. And I used to go everywhere with them. So that bond is there. I mean, everything, anything, they should be able to tell you. And there was an experience with my big girls. So my girls, they fear me. They fear that if they do anything underground, I'll have a dream and see it. I had an experience like that. I had a dream first time. I ignored it. I didn't understand. Then I had another dream. I ignored it. Then you know what God did? She used my tablet, and then I saw it. So then she knows that if I do something wrong, mommy will see. You see, and it's also how you pray for them, how you bring them before God. God knows your heart, you know. And my husband and I, when the children were going to school, when they were in secondary school, I mean primary to secondary school, we did an arrangement such that my husband would always take them and I would bring them home. So that was also the time that he would have his time to bond with them on their way out, and I would bond with them on our way back. But as I said, communication. You see, one parent should be strict, so they fear the father, and then one should be such that they can come to me whenever. But they know that when they come to me and they do not come the right way to, I will also give it to them. So it's the relationship building. And I thank God. I tell my children, I think I was mentioning to George before that, as a parent, if you are not able to lead your children to Christ, I think you have failed. Your children should know Christ. I mean, me, for instance, is the church that we were going every Sunday that we thought it was nothing. At a certain point in time, you know, I remember, I think it was sixth form, Because I used to attend Anglican, as I said before. Sixth form, when I went to church, I said, and the kind of things that people were doing in the church, I said, do we call ourselves Christians? What is this that is happening? So that was when I stopped and I went to ICGC. So I went to ICGC for years. And now my daughter is not here. My big daughter, she's no longer here. So when a few people have approached me and asked me, I said, well, for me, I don't see anything wrong with it because at a point in time, I also left. And serving God is a relationship. So if it is the church, she might come back, but it's the relationship, the bond that she needs with God. And thankfully, where she went to, she identified them here. When they were having all nights and all that, she would come for all nights and all that. Then she has moved to their church. But it's the relationship. It's the children knowing that I have a relationship with God, and therefore my walk with Him should be as God wants. I mean, for me, that is everything. And then I try, as a parent, I try to give them what they want, and I advise them a lot, especially girls. You need to advise them. You need to talk to them. You need to let them know that you are there for them so that nobody will deceive them.
Okay, I think time is catching up with us, so we'll be wrapping up. And in doing that, I would like to ask if there's one thing that you could change about Ghanaian society today, what would that be?
George, it's a good question. I like to change three things. Three things. And why? Because I had lived outside for so long. My first one is discipline. The society is not as disciplined as I had left it. And without discipline, nothing can be done. The top is not disciplined, the bottom is not disciplined, the underpart is not disciplined. Without discipline, you can't do anything. The second one is we lie too much. There's no reason to lie. Because you can't lie to God. So why lie to Reverend Ankama? Tell him, and then he'll be able to help you. My third thing is we've become too materialistic. We have become too materialistic. Money, 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 money. But money is not everything. There is quality of life. There are happiness in little things that we should enjoy. However, if you don't have a Range Rover, that means you haven't been successful. Because of that, the younger people are looking to things that takes a long time to acquire. You don't get it overnight. Also, raising kids, you must let them work. Hard work doesn't kill anybody. Hard work, I've never seen anybody that hard work has killed. Hard work doesn't kill anybody. And my last element is always be humble. Humble in your ways. Don't let money overtake you. Be humble, be simple. Keep it simple, keep it humble. And at the end, it shall pay off. And God even tells us in Proverbs, always be humble. And things will work out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Auntie Araba, your take on that?
Mine will be in just a sentence, that we should be each other's keeper. If we are each other's keeper, we are more likely to love. And if I love you, I wouldn't want to do you any harm. So the lies, the humility, all that will come into play, which goes to underscore the fact that in a country where we are over 70% Christians, we don't see it. So I would love to see that really 70% of us are Christians, and we are living it. That is always my prayer. And I continue to pray that God will turn things around. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And this has been a very awesome session. A very awesome session. Yeah, give it up, give it up. I think we've learned very much in this short time we've had with you guys. And certainly, I personally, I voted that we bring them back to have a part 2 or something like that. But yes, and we'll discuss that. So thank you very much, Uncle Franklin. Thank you very much, Auntie Araba. Like I said, I've learned some things, and I just like to highlight some of your quotables. Uncle Franklin said that self-esteem and confidence are very, very, very key, and that they start from the home, from your family, your support system, and that one must have determination. That's from Auntie Araba. One must have determination, focus, commitment to achieve whatever we want to achieve. And another thing being that we have to prepare for the opportunities that are ahead of us. We might not know that they might come, but you certainly have to prepare for those opportunities. So thank you very much for those. All too soon, we've come to the end of today's session. Thank you, guys. Thank the in-person audience. Thank our online audience. Yes. Thank our online audience. And we will see you guys again in our next edition. God bless you.